Let's talk about Oregon. Let's talk about Dan Lanning. This season's been unbelievable for the University of Oregon. You go down to Georgia and you get pummeled and embarrassed by a 5'9" quarterback in Stetson Bennett, by Brock Bowers. You get destroyed, crushed, and killed and trampled on 69-3, 59-3. Horrible, horrible. You thought that this program was close after Mario Cristobal. No, Dan Lanning, everybody's questioning the hire. It's an embarrassment on 3:30 on ABC East Coast time. What then transpires? Oregon goes home. They go to the doctor, as Dan Lanning would tell you. They go to the doctor. And every Monday they go to the doctor, and you know who they play every week? They play the University of Oregon. It's Oregon versus Oregon. I'm buying into the Dan Lanning school of doing business. Dan Lanning. If I can have any coach in the country, it's Dan. Even over Saban, even over Dabo and Ryan Day, or Heupel or Kirby Smart, it's Dan Lanning. He's got Kenny Dillingham, a risky hire, 32 years old, was Gus Malzahn's coffee boy at Auburn, was with Mike Norvell through a very, very rocky Florida State tenure where they were 0-4. He was the offensive coordinator. Dan Lanning's like, let me get Dillingham. This offense running the ball has been sensational. Sensational. Bucky Irving, the way that they run the football, this offensive line is a veteran group, and they are tremendous. Adrian Clem, I know that the Steelers, and by the way, Clem's not on the Steelers, and their offensive line is still kind of pitiful. This offensive line is so much fun to watch. Oregon's offense, I believe, is averaging 42 points a game. Bo Nix used to be a quarterback that you had to worry about making the back-breaking turnover. He was in a quarterback battle with Ty Thompson and Jay Butterfield in this offseason. He's played at an extremely high level where it's not even out of the question. This guy was kind of an average college quarterback last year at Auburn. But now you look at Auburn, they have no wide receivers. They're boosters. They're top down. Auburn has so many problems. And Bo Nix is so much better than Robbie Ashford. And he's so much better than TJ Finley, who's not even playing there. So Bo Nix goes to a situation where they have talent. You have Ferguson. You have Seven McGee. You have Franklin. And Franklin's made so many huge, huge catches this season. So Bo Nix is so efficient. He has a big arm. He's playing tall. He's throwing in the middle of the field. He's using every bit of his 6-foot frame to throw the football. He's hanging in the pocket. He's reading defenses. He's in the best shape of his life. And he's a quarterback that's just playing on time, playing in rhythm. And Dillingham in this staff, Junior Adams, Coach Lachlan, Clem, they've done a tremendous job. Tremendous job. These guys are making contested catches all over the field. Bo Nix has a big-time arm. This guy looks like, if Bailey Zappi can play quarterback in the NFL, Bo Nix is at least going to be a backup quarterback in the NFL. At least. He looks like he can start and be functional in an NFL game if you needed to in a year. That's how good Bo Nix is playing. A top 10 quarterback in the country. There's no doubt about it. He's playing at that level in this offense. So Bo Nix has been spectacular. Bo Nix against Washington State, when Oregon's defense was still getting used to Lanning, was still not at the point where they needed to be. Cameron Ward, dynamic player. I think a Sunday player. Cam Ward, Jake Dicker, that team, they had Oregon on the ropes in Pullman when Oregon was just in year 3 of this Lanning thing. Okay? Or it might have been week 4 after Oregon beat the brakes off of BYU, which was just so impressive. They buried BYU. Bo Nix, down by, I believe, 12. 4th down and like 6 at the time. Hits Bucky Irving in the middle of the field. They go on the score. They go on to beat Washington State. They get a pick 6 on the next possession. They eke it out. Pick 6, Bo Nix, 4th down, conversions. They score 14 points in 2 minutes on the road. They survive Pullman. That game is making them a threat to win the Pac-12. If they don't win that game, there is no Pac-12. There is no discussion of playoffs with the Oregon Ducks. So I'm going to go right now, and I'm going to look up the Oregon schedule. Their defense, by the way, they go to Arizona, they kill Arizona. They end teams in 3 quarters. They're like Mike Tyson, Dan Lanning teams. Unlike Mario Cristobal, where even if they're not playing a good team, you have to sweat it out. With Dan Lanning, the standard's the standards. And Bo Nix, he's not even playing the fourth quarter of these games against Stanford. Bo Nix, 80-yard touchdown runs. Bo Nix running the football. McGee running the football. It's a stable fort of backs. Even the guy from Florida, James. This whole team is so well coached. They're so disciplined. They're not making mistakes. They're stopping the run at a high clip. Their defensive secondary got tested by Arizona. They don't have a lot of flaws. If they can run the football and Bo Nix can play consistent ball, I believe that they're going to win and beat UCLA. I do. UCLA is really, really good. DTR is experienced and playing at an all-time level. They have that tight end kind of wide receiver hybrid who's a tremendous player. You also have a Carbonet. They played tremendous against Utah. DTR is awesome. DTR is a great, great player. It is going to be a show in Eugene. College Game Day is going there. Josh Pate is going there. But this Oregon team, guys, all their tough games are at home. Utah's at home. Washington's at home. Oregon State's at home. They have to go to Colorado still, and Colorado's not very good. Oregon State, the last game of the year, Oregon State's physical. You saw them take USC right to the brink where USC needed a late touchdown drive. That game's not going to be easy, and Utah won't be easy. And Washington's playing better football. And Washington, I like Kalen DeBoer. So the Pac-12 right now, even Jed Fish is doing better than I would have thought. Jaden DeLaura, he looks like an NFL quarterback. He's a really great player. Jacob Cowing, big-time recruit from, I believe, New Mexico, who plays on Arizona, who's a great receiver. So the Pac-12 is so much fun. And it could be a battle between USC and Oregon. Because I look at USC and I think that they still look pretty impressive. Going out to Utah, winning that game, and I was impressed that USC was able to go out to Utah and play with that physicality and take that kind of lead. Yes, they blew the game, but I think it's going to be Lincoln Riley versus Dan Lanning. But the way that I see Oregon, they're a more complete team. I think that they run the football better than USC, and their defense is really coming along. They have Sewell, they have Johnson, they have good players, and their secondary is young. But the secondary is getting up to speed. And Dan Lanning, I love Dan Lanning. You guys have seen me on this channel, know that I love Oregon football. But Bo Nix has truly been that special of a player for the University of Oregon. He's been that good. So now if we look at the college football playoff, we look at everything going on in the college football playoff. We have the University of Texas. They could maybe win the Big 12. But we have TCU that is undefeated in the Big 12. Oklahoma State has one loss, so they're probably going to cannibalize each other in the Big 12. That's the way that it's going to go in the Big 12. They're going to cannibalize each other in the Big 12. Unless TCU rolls the table and goes undefeated, a one-loss Oregon's going to be in the playoff out of those teams, okay? They're going to beat a one-loss, I believe, Big 12 because their wins over Utah, USC, UCLA, even beating BYU is pretty decent. The problem is, though, is that Michigan beat the doors off of Penn State. Michigan looks awesome. That was a big-time win by the University of Michigan, that game. That was a huge victory for Michigan. And the thing is about Penn State is Penn State has hit its peak with Mike Yurachek and with Sean Clifford. Yurachek is going to have to get more creative, and they need Drew Aller. They need a complete team because that second half against Michigan's unacceptable. J.J. McCarthy isn't even to the point where he's a tremendous quarterback. You have a much more experienced quarterback, And Michigan's team, they don't even have Hutchinson. I know their offensive line is fine, but they also lost their coordinator this year. Penn State, incredibly disappointing. Now you look at that Auburn game differently. You look at Auburn just being terrible. So Michigan, the Michigan Wolverines, if they go undefeated and they have Michigan State, I still think Michigan could slip up even before Ohio State. There's going to be some game that Michigan's going to play crappy, and it could be against Michigan State. This is a classic Michigan State. Michigan State just won a double overtime game against Wisconsin. Okay, this is the Super Bowl to Michigan State. I'm telling you, Michigan State has a chance to beat Michigan. But you look at Ohio State is a shoe, and I think Ohio State's going undefeated, going to win. But if Michigan only has one loss, and yes, they beat Penn State, that's actually going to be a very interesting argument. Who should be in? Should it be Michigan or should it be Oregon? But then you have to look at Clemson. And if Clemson runs the table, or even Clemson with one loss, but Clemson, in my opinion, is in. I'm just going to put Clemson in. I think they're better than any ACC opponent out there. Okay? So a one-loss Clemson versus a Pac-12 one-loss is going to be very interesting debate, but I think Clemson's going to get in. Then you look at the SEC. You could have Ole Miss with one loss vying for a spot because Alabama could beat Ole Miss head-to-head. Then you're looking at Georgia and Tennessee. And the problem is for Oregon, if Tennessee beats Georgia, Georgia will then be, most likely, unless they lose to Mississippi State, a one-loss Georgia is obviously with the head-to-head. They're getting in over Oregon at that point. Tennessee and Alabama. If Tennessee goes undefeated and there's another one-loss SEC like Alabama that's out there, if Alabama beats Tennessee, say that Alabama with one loss beats an undefeated Tennessee. Every team, Tennessee and Georgia, are both not going to be SEC champions, but Tennessee beat Alabama, LSU, Pittsburgh. Tennessee beat Georgia. They're in the playoff with Alabama. Then you look at Oregon. Then you look at Oregon with one loss. They're not beating Georgia with one loss. So then it could literally be Ohio State, and then you're going to really have to compare Georgia's resume with maybe a one-loss Clemson. But the way it could go is Ohio State and Clemson, they look like they're the teams that are going to be in the college football playoff. Those are the two teams. They go undefeated, they're in. Okay, so you got two teams that go undefeated, they're in. The Big 12, I don't know if TCU is going to run the table completely. I seem to doubt it. There's just too many teams in the Big 12. And with one loss, unfortunately for TCU, they beat SMU, whatever. They don't look like they're going to be in, but then it's going to be Oregon and TCU. So it's a top heavy. It's a great season for college football this year. If there were 6 teams, I think a 6-team playoff would be very significant, would be almost tremendous. Even 8 teams is 12 teams is too many. You know, because Alabama losing to Tennessee, even though I'm wearing an Alabama shirt, that's great for college football. The regular season should mean so much in college football. It should. And that's why 12 teams is too many teams, because it devalues those incredible games. And now you're talking buys, and then you're making the college game more professional. It should be incredibly difficult to make the college football playoff. There shouldn't be a Utah that gets to have a couple of mulligans and still gets to be in the college football playoff. That's unacceptable. It should be very difficult to make the college football playoff. If there were 6 teams in the college football playoff this year, it would be great. It would be the most ideal setting. You maybe have 2 byes, quarterfinals, semifinals, championship. 6 teams is perfect. But for TV, for the sake of money, that's the thing. The sake of incredible money. They still make money, but it's the sake of unbelievable amounts of money. I'm not telling college football not to make money, because making money is incredibly paramount and is sacred, and it is very important. But the fact that you're making it 12 teams now, where you're having a round of 16, is just a little crazy to me. Too many teams. But Oregon with Dan Lanning is fun. I see them really having a chance to be 12-1. Really having. TCU beating Oklahoma State. that was also a remarkable feat by the TCU Horned Frogs. That was a remarkable feat. So again, this is the college football show. We talked about Tennessee and Alabama. We talked about Oregon. We talked about the college football playoff. We talked about Clemson's incredible, resilient victory. We're going to talk a couple of more topics here on the other side.